Okay, now let me ask you the second moral dilemma. The second moral dilemma is a slightly different situation. The situation is you are actually on top of an overpass looking over the railroad track where the train is coming down. And on the left side are the 10 people, and standing next to you in the overpass is an individual. You don't know him, stranger, but you happen to be standing next to him. And the question is, would you be willing to push the person over the railing onto the tracks, and his mangled body will be enough to slow down the train and save the 10 people? Would you be willing to do that? How many people would be willing to push that person over? Wow. Nobody? I'm shocked. We have no murderers in this classroom. Why not? It's the exact same problem as before. Exact same problem. One person dying versus 10 people dying. You just let 10 people die because you weren't willing to push this person over. Mariana?
Could you throw yourself?
You could absolutely throw yourself if you wished. That's very noble of you. Let me rule that out. So, for whatever reason, you're not big enough to slow down the train. This person's really big, and okay. Why so different in this case? Anybody? Yeah, Madeline.
I think you're removed in one case. Here you're not removed.
You're not removed. That's right. Does that make sense to you, though? Do you think that's rational? That you should hesitate?
Perspective? No. From a human perspective, I get it.
You get it. There is a difference, right? Well, so neuroscientists have actually explained this in a very interesting way. So, not surprisingly, this is a very strange kind of a behavior from the mathematical perspective because the two situations are literally identical. But you're right. In one case, you actually have to actively hurt another person, although pushing a button seems like that's hurting somebody too, right? But it's different, and here's the difference. So neuroscientists, they took subjects and put them in an MRI machine and scanned their brains while they were making this trolley car decision. And they noticed something really interesting. In the first dilemma, the part of the brain that was being used to make that choice was the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for logical deliberation, and from an evolutionary perspective, the newest part of the brain. That's why they call it the neocortex. That's the part of the brain that is used for mathematical deliberation and logical analysis. When they gave the subject the second dilemma, the part of the brain that was being used was actually the midbrain, the part that's responsible for emotion. Fear, greed, love, hate, a much more ancient part of the brain from an evolutionary perspective. And so the neuroscientists, particularly Joshua Green at Harvard University, made the conjecture, which I find really compelling, that whenever you engage in an active act to hurt or help another human being, a different part of the brain gets triggered. When you engage in abstract calculation, it's that prefrontal cortex. And so we're using different decision-making components. And so the key to all of this, to which component of the brain is being triggered, is the simple narrative, me hurt you, as a caveman might say, if a caveman could speak English. If I'm trying to hurt you, that's a whole different proposition than if we're simply making the best of a bad set of circumstances and trying to do the greatest good for the greatest number. And so from an ethical perspective, things cross the line from calculation to emotion when you're talking about actively harming another individual. So now I think you understand the difference between Gilead and Tesla. If you don't buy a Tesla, you're not harmed in the same way that if you can't afford Sovaldi and you've got hepatitis C. And even though the two things are mathematically identical, charging what the market will bear in one circumstance is going to elicit a different response than another circumstance because a different part of the brain is being used to weigh those decisions. So I don't have an answer for you as to what is ethical and what's not, but I can tell you that if you're talking about a moral calculus based upon utilitarian principles in the prefrontal cortex, then standard microeconomics works beautifully. Go ahead, charge what the market will bear, no problem. But if you're talking about actively harming somebody, either by withholding a treatment or not engaging in a particular research strategy to develop a treatment, that's me hurt you. And that gets treated differently. So we need to deal with that.